next up, yo, straight into the next video. 19 actors. I guess they meant to say you didn't know are dead. Let's get into it.
19 actors you may not know are dead, and the reasons why.
Gary Coleman, I definitely
James
know that.
Gandolfini. You most likely know Gandolfini from his role as Tony Soprano in The Sopranos.
Yeah.
However, he was also in hits like Crimson Tide, Where the Wild Things Are,
I
The
definitely read that
Mexican,
book.
and The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
It's a book too.
Born in New Jersey to Italian immigrants, he worked as a bouncer, bartender, and club manager before making the switch to the acting world after attending an acting class with a friend. His Broadway debut was in a production of A Streetcar Named Desire, while his film debut was in a 1989 low-budget student movie titled Eddie. But his big break came in 1999 when he was cast as a mob boss in The Sopranos, with his masterclass performance garnering critical acclaim and awards from all quarters and influencing character creation and development in TV shows like Breaking Bad. In 2013, while in Rome on vacation to celebrate his son graduating from high school, Gandolfini was discovered unconscious in a hotel room. He was rushed to the hospital, only to be pronounced dead from a heart attack at the age of 51. Be sure to stick to the end to see just why one of the actors who played Joker in The Dark Knight died so young. If you thought Gandolfini's story was a sob one, wait till you hear this next one. And don't forget
Who
to
is
hit
it?
that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more amazing videos. Bernie Mac.
Bernie
Born
Mac was a
Bernard
sad
Jeffrey
one.
McCullough
Bernie Mac
and
was
raised
definitely
on the
sad.
south side of Chicago, Bernie Mac was raised by his mom, who called him Beanie. Sadly, she departed when he was still a teen. Bernie Mac tied the knot with his high school sweetheart in 1977 and set about making a living via a variety of jobs, all while doing comedy shows on the side. His persistence was rewarded when he came first in a Comedy Search show. But most will remember him for the time he went on stage at a Def Jam event and told an unruly crowd to behave because he was in no mood to take any foolishness. His first film role was in
Yeah, he
Mo
definitely was
Money,
good in
with
Def
Friday
Comedy
introducing him to mainstream success. Ocean's 11, Charlie's
Miss
Angels,
Parker,
Full Throttle,
Miss Parker.
Head of State, and Old Dogs followed, and in the latter, his co-stars were John Travolta and Robin Williams. He also had the Bernie Mac Show on Fox TV that ran from 2001 to 2006, and this got him a Peabody and an Emmy. Movie
Everybody's
stuff
gonna be in
apart, he
trouble,
authored two
trouble.
books, I Ain't Scared of You, Bernie Mac on How Life Is, 2001, and Maybe You Never Cry Again, 2003. Bernie Mac suffered a heart attack and died on August 9, 2008, at the age of 50 of pneumonia complications. What are some jokes you remember from
They-
Bernie? Put them in the comments section.
They
Chris
said that
Penn.
wasn't even true. I don't
Next
know.
is Chris Penn, and he's Sean Penn's younger brother. Chris Penn tended to play tough guy characters, had a thing for Booker's Bourbon, and boasted
a-
the likes of Emilio Estevez,
They said Bernie Mac's wife died too. I don't know how true that is.
Charlie Sheen, Chad Lowe, and Rob Lowe as high school classmates. His debut on the big screen was in Charlie and the Talking Buzzard, and in 1983, Francis Ford Coppola put him in the commercial disaster that was Rumblefish. 1983 saw him cast alongside Tom Cruise in All the Right Moves, and this was followed by the mega hit that was Footloose. In 1986, he got to work alongside his brother Sean Penn in At Close Range. The 90s saw him in a couple of Quentin Tarantino movies and a Jay-Z musical video, and the next decade had him voicing the character of a crooked cop in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and starring in the likes of American
Definitely
Pie
remember these.
and Murder by Numbers. In 2006, the 40-year-old Chris Penn was found lifeless in his apartment, with heart disease being the culprit. Hugh Dane. This actor's name might not ring any bells, but if you were a fan of The Office, you should be able to recognize him as Hank, the security guard in that iconic mockumentary. Remember that hilarious printer versus chair scene?
Well, what should I do?
Let me see the copier again.
All right, get out.
Born in Arizona in 1942, Hugh Dane got his first professional role in a 1989 video game with a small role in The Hunter following. He never had a lead role and made something of a career out of playing bit parts in movies and shows like Martin, Little Fockers, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where he met the actor coming up later in this video from whom Will Smith learned to be a respectable human being, Friends, Bridesmaids, and Starstruck. His final movie role was in Rumble Strip, and he died in May 2018 of pancreatic cancer. Dustin Diamond. Dustin once worked as a live store mannequin and got bit by the acting bug while still a kid, with his first movie and TV roles coming in 1987. He is most widely known for his Samuel Screech Powers character in the different iterations of Saved by the Bell, and once went on the Howard Stern Show to ask Saved by the Bell fans to purchase branded t-shirts in quantities that would help him avoid foreclosing on his house. His later works include appearances in Celebrity Big Brother, Hamlet ADD, and Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell. And in 2009, he published a rather unflattering book on the cast and crew of Saved by the Bell that he later admitted was factually inaccurate. Dustin had been feeling unwell for a while, but he only made the trip to the hospital when a large lump showed up on his neck. He was diagnosed with cancer and died on February 1st, 2021 at the age of 44.
It's like lately a lot of people, I didn't even mean to post it on that, but it's like lately a lot of people is just dying from cancer.
Gary Coleman. Gary Coleman's tiny shape could be attributed to congenital kidney disease and the drugs needed to treat that. Born in Illinois to a homeless woman and adopted when a few days old, his showbiz career began with commercials. He did well enough in Little Rascals for studio executives to cast him as Arnold Jackson in Different Strokes. That show ran for 8 seasons, with Jerry snagging consecutive People's Choice Awards from 1980 to 1983, and earning up to $100,000 per episode, and a total of almost $18 million from the late 70s to the 80s, with almost all this money being mismanaged by his adopted parents. Coleman's first feature film role was in On the Right Track, 1981, while his last movie...
I think that happened to like a lot of child actors who was put into like roles by their parents. I think that,
role was in Midgets vs. Mascots, 2009. As the years went by, he had great difficulty finding consistent work, and this made him bitter, angry, and liable to lash out at real or perceived enemies. On May 26, 2010, he was rushed to the hospital after falling down some stairs. Initially improving, his condition later dramatically worsened, and he died on May 28, 2010.
Yeah, because then he passed not too long after Michael Jackson.
What you talking about,
Willis?
Patrice O'Neal. Patrice Lumumba Malcolm O'Neal was named after Malcolm X and Patrice Lumumba. O'Neal was an A-class comedian. His first stand-up comedy gig was in October 1992 in Boston, and this happened after he heckled a comedian at an open mic comedy night, and this fella challenged him to show up and perform the next week. In 1998, he opened to move to and jump into the New York comedy scene, with his next haunt being Los Angeles. Unable to get consistent work in the States, O'Neal took his comedy act to the UK and then to Australia and varied European countries. From 2006 to 2007, he toured the U.S. with Opie and Anthony's Traveling Virus Tour. One October morning in 2011, O'Neal woke up unable to walk and was rushed to the hospital. He died in November 2011 at the age of 41, with the cause being complications from a stroke that had been exacerbated by type 2 diabetes. David Carradine. David Carradine has been in over 100 movies and spent over 6 decades in the entertainment industry. He was born John Arthur Carradine in December 1936 and had an extremely hard childhood. He grew up, married, was drafted, and got serious about acting after his stint in the Army. He made his TV debut in an Armstrong Circle Theater episode in 1963 and the following year he got his first movie role in Taggart. Kung Fu, the ABC hit that Carradine is most known for, ran from 1972 to 1975 and helped make martial arts and Eastern philosophy mainstream in the West. Other significant works include Death Race, 1975, Bound for Glory, 1976, Circle of Iron, 1978, North and South, 1985, Kill Bill Volume 1, 2003, and Kill Bill Volume 2, 2004. Carradine was a skilled musician, too, and it was he who crafted the flute y'all saw him blowing in Kill Bill Volume 2. He went to Thailand in late May 2009, and on June 5th was found lifeless in his hotel room, the victim of accidental asphyxiation.
Excuse me.
James Rebhorn. James Rebhorn is a character actor who has been in at least 100 movies and TV shows, often in a well-tailored suit and seldom in a lead role. He was born in the city of brotherly love, and plays were for a time his focus before he dived into moviedom and began starring in TV shows and films. He was a serial killer in Law & Order, a lieutenant in White Squall, a witness in My Cousin Vinny, and the Secretary of Defense in the 1996 mega hit that was Independence Day. James Rebhorn became a Homeland regular from 2011 to 2014, and he was a white-collar staple as well. Sadly, this upstanding fellow was diagnosed with melanoma back in 1992, and despite the best of medical care, the disease took his life on March 21st, 2014. And he wrote his own obituary, which is quite the boss move. Michael Clark Duncan. Duncan called Chicago home and was raised by his mom. He almost joined the NFL and later turned to a variety of gigs to make ends meet. He worked as a bouncer and bodyguard for stars like Will Smith, LL Cool J, Martin Lawrence, Jamie Foxx, and the Notorious B.I.G., but quit when Biggie died. Duncan got his first big break in Armageddon, and while on set, befriended Bruce Willis. Willis used his influence to help Duncan snag the role of John Coffey in The Green Mile, with Duncan's performance earning him Academy Award and Golden Globe nominations. Duncan from then on was able to get good roles like in The Whole Nine Yards, Planet of the Apes, and Sin City. He suffered a heart attack in July 2012 and died in September of that year of respiratory failure. Christopher Plummer. Christopher Plummer's most breathtaking role was in The Sound of Music. Throughout his 7-decade career, his prodigious talents got him 2 Tony Awards, an Academy Award, 2 Primetime Emmy Awards, a Screen Actors Guild Award, and a Grammy Award nomination. He fell in love with the theater at a young age, and by high school was already a regular in school plays. He made his professional acting debut in 1948, often appearing on stage alongside William Shatner of Star Trek fame. Plummer's Broadway debut came in 1953. Over the years, he played nearly every leading Shakespearean role, as well as major historical figures, from Rudyard Kipling, the first Duke of Wellington, Kaiser Wilhelm II, and Leo Tolstoy, to J. Paul Getty. Regretfully, he turned down the role of Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Christopher Plummer died peacefully at home in February 2021. Ranjit Chowdhury. Never heard of this guy? We're sure that's a mistake because he was in 2 episodes of The Office and was in Last Holiday opposite Queen Latifah. Chowdhury was also in 2 episodes of Prison Break, taking on the role of a vet doctor who teabagged shot full of poison. He made his film debut in a Bollywood film and had a prolific Bollywood career. The U.S. came calling and he moved there in the 1980s, making it into TV shows and movies like King of the Jungle, Law & Order Special Victims Unit, American Blend, Kettle of Fish, Today's Special, and the aforesaid Prison Break and The Office. In 2020, Chowdhury went to Mumbai for a dental procedure, and while there suffered a ruptured ulcer that necessitated emergency hospital admittance. Sadly, he did not survive and departed at 64. Lee Thompson Young. Young's talents became manifest when at age 10 he played the role of Martin Luther King Jr. in a play. His big screen debut was as Jet Jackson in the famous Jet Jackson, and he parlayed this success in a Disney Channel show into work in other shows and movies like Smallville, Terminator, The Sarah Connor Chronicles, Akeelah and the Bee, Flash Forward, The Hills Have
Yeah,
Eyes
I watched
2,
that movie.
Scrubs, and The Good Guys. In August 2013, Lee Thompson was
The name sounds
inexplicably
familiar.
absent from the set of Rizzoli and Isles, and the police were asked to go see if he was okay. They found him deceased from a gunshot wound, and it later emerged that he had been bipolar since his teen years and had been depressed in the period leading up to his taking his life.
Wow.
Carl Reiner. A man of many talents and staying power, Reiner was an actor, comedian, author, screenwriter,
looked
and
familiar.
director, and so good at his craft that in 1999 he was inducted into the Television Hall of Fame. Over the years, he was given an incredible 11 Primetime Emmy Awards, plus a Grammy and the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. He was born in March 1922, served in the Air Force, and spent much of his time there entertaining the troops. His professional career began during the 1950s, and by 1956, he had 2 Emmy Awards in the bag. The Dick Van Dyke Show came from his own experiences, and he wrote the initial 13 episodes of that show. His biggest movie roles include appearances in Oh God and Ocean's 11, and he was a guest star in 2.5 Men. As an author, he
I remember
wrote
that
a
episode. I
score
remember that
plus
episode.
books,
I think that's how he
including
looked.
memoirs and children's books. Carl Reiner died in June 2020 of natural causes. He was 98. Brian Dennehy. Brian was a
Damn, he lived a long time. I mean, I'd say that, but you can't feel bad. He lived, as long as he could. Natural causes, died for natural
movie,
causes.
TV, and stage heavyweight with a Golden Globe, an Olivier Award, 2 Tony Awards, and 6 Primetime Emmy Award nominations to his name. Dennehy was born in Connecticut and went to Columbia University on a football scholarship. He opted to pause his studies and jump into the U.S. Marines for 5 years. His martial thirst sated, although he never saw combat. He returned to Columbia and got a degree. He began acting soon after, often playing the part of powerful but mean and corrupt men. He was in Semi-Tough, Foul Play, Split Image, Bestseller, and Righteous Kill, the latter featuring Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. But possibly his most memorable role was as Sheriff Will Teasel in First Blood, where he and other overzealous cops got John Rambo so riled up that he shot up an American town. Dennehy went the way of all mortals in April 2020, suffering a heart attack that was triggered by sepsis.
Sepsis. What's
James Avery.
Yeah,
There used
that
to be a
was sad.
peach of a show called The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and James Avery played the role of Uncle Phil in that oh-so-marvelous show. Born in Virginia, he had
He
an
definitely did
uneventful
sting in,
childhood,
Fresh
but
Prince.
served in the U.S. Navy during the Vietnam War. Once back home, he took to writing poetry and TV scripts for PBS, getting an Emmy for this. His first movie appearance was in 1980, and this was an uncredited performance as an extra in The Stuntman. Bit parts in movies and TV shows followed till he snagged a lead role in what would prove to be his magnum opus, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He also had a lead role in Sparks and played supporting roles in The Closer and The Division. James Avery died on December 31, 2013, from open heart surgery complications. Kelly Preston. Kelly here was born in Hawaii, with her dad drowning at work when she was just 3 years old. At age 16, she was spotted by a photographer and started showing up in commercials. Her first movie role was in 10 to Midnight,
Child
a
Punch.
crime horror flick. But her most impressive acting credits were in Twins, a comedy featuring the duo of Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Yeah, I think I watched
Jerry
that movie.
Maguire, in which she starred opposite Tom Cruise, and Nothing to Lose with Tim Robbins
Definitely
and
watched
Martin
that.
Lawrence.
Yeah.
She met John Travolta on the set of The Experts, and they tied the knot in 1991. In 2018, Kelly was given a breast cancer diagnosis, which took her life in July 2020. DMX. You may
Sorry.
know DMX as a rapper, but he was also an actor who has appeared in movies such as Exit Wounds, The Bleeding, Father of Lies,
Yeah, I remember
Romeo
that.
Must Die, Cradle 2, The Grave, Death Toll, and Last Hour, with his Exit Wounds performance opposite Steven Seagal being possibly the best known.
Hold up. Time out. Because I fucked with DMX. How they gonna forget Belly like that? Like, how they just gonna forget Belly like that?
DMX became addicted to crack at the age of 14 and battled drug addiction throughout his life. In April 2021, he was rushed to hospital after suffering a heart attack that had been triggered by an overdose of these illicit drugs. He never regained consciousness and was pronounced dead on April 9, 2021. Heath Ledger. Ledger was an Australian who was born in Perth. His dad was a racing driver and engineer, while his mom was a French teacher. He got a pet kangaroo as a kid, became interested in acting at an early age, and by the age of 10 had already starred in a school production of Peter Pan. Ledger had no formal acting training, and his first TV role was in Clownin' Around, 1992. By 1997, he was in Home and Away, with 1999 seeing him in 10 Things I Hate About You and Two Hands. Ledger moved to the U.S. in 1998, excelling in movies like Brokeback Mountain, where he played the part of an anguished lover opposite Jake Gyllenhaal, The Dark Knight, which was headlined by Christian Bale, while Ledger played the part of the Joker, being the first non-American to play that specific role.
That was him?
On the 22nd of January 2008, he was found unresponsive in bed and shortly after was pronounced dead. An autopsy concluded that his death had been due to the consumption of a wide variety of drugs, and this, plus a chest infection, resulted in his death. Click here to see actors and actresses currently rotting in.
Well, that's gonna wrap up that video. Rest in peace to all the people that's in this video. Definitely DMX, because that was one of my favorite artists. Catch you on the next video.